Morning, Bill.
Good morning, Mark. How are you today?
Actually a very happy day today. It's a very sunny day. The sun's out. It's fresh, I suppose, but it's still nice.
At 6:30 this morning, Mark, on the Barwon River.
It was?
I didn't call it fresh.
Okay, all right. Well, but you're the one who gets up at that time, not
and
me.
my fingers haven't thawed out yet. And we've started judging the Geelong Business Awards.
We have, and there's about 60-odd entries.
Yes.
And some really good ones, some really interesting ones, and ones we've never heard of before. So
That's right. No, we're looking forward to finishing that off. Just does take a lot of time, but it's worthwhile.
It's been good fun. So today's guest, Bill.
Well, today we want to introduce our listeners to Lachie McColl. I haven't met Lachie personally before, but I've seen firsthand some of the stuff he's done. And Lachie is a valuer, I guess, for a one-word description. So welcome, Lachie.
Thanks, Bill and Mark.
Welcome. And SME Valuations, the company name?
That's it. Yep.
That's them.
Sorry, Mark, we should clarify that valuations, it's all business for valuations.
Business Valuations.
That's right.
Yeah, correct.
Yeah.
So, Lachie, I think you've said you've listened to a couple of our famous podcasts.
I have.
So where did you go to primary school?
Chilwell Primary School.
Chilwell, a local
And
one.
ironically, my children went there as well.
That's very good. And high school then?
I went to Geelong Grammar at grade 5, right through to the end.
Yep.
Yep.
And
so
while you were there, what were you thinking of doing?
no idea. No, absolutely no motivation, unfortunately, at that point. I was enjoying life. And probably that continued on to the university days, enjoying life a bit too much. And
Lachie, which campus was the junior school in those days?
I was out at Highton, which is backing on to Marcus Oldham still.
My
and
sister was the matron.
Oh, wow.
Jenny Davis, her name was.
My God.
Right? And, it was a great school.
It was fantastic,
Yes.
and the space was amazing, and it's a shame it's not still part of the school or a school. It was a brilliant spot.
Well, now is it Christian College?
Part of the school, so I think they've split it
they
into
split it
and
all
that
up.
bit's Christian and that bit's something
And
else.
out the back of it
Yeah.
is a very famous institution called Marcus Oldham.
Yes.
Yep, it is
Yes,
true.
that's right.
So did you play sport at school?
Played sport, played a bit of footy and a cricket. Nothing to really speak of. No AFL prospect or anything like that, but certainly enjoyed playing sport.
And any jobs to keep yourself occupied with some pocket money?
Absolutely. So first job that I remember would have been 14 or 15, working for Dad. He had a transport business with my grandpa, just working out in the yard and washing trucks and that sort of thing with the mechanics, which was good fun. I had a few actually. So working for Dad, I worked for the local pinball parlour in Torquay, which was called Surf Rider Cafe. I don't think it's there anymore, but I manned the pinballs and the mini golf out the back.
That's very cool.
Handing out tokens and that sort of thing. My brother got me a job at the Torquay Hotel, so I was a glassy there for a while, which was interesting. Worked at Village Cinemas, which I think it was Village Twin, and then it opened as Village 11, and I was one of the first employees of the 11, which was good fun, handing out tickets, and they're probably the main ones from a schooling / early university days.
So, all right, so after year 12, what happened next?
Found myself at Melbourne Uni and did a Bachelor of Commerce. Stayed on campus there, which was a lot of fun, and probably met some lifelong friends there, which we've still got, many of which are actually moved to Geelong now. So, enjoyed that for a few years. Lived on campus for a couple of years and then went away with my girlfriend at the time, now wife, and we spent some time living in Richmond, Parkville, and you name it. So that was a lot of fun.
What were you doing then? What sort of employment did you have then?
So I was doing a Bachelor of Commerce, and then I took on an internship over summer at KPMG, one of the big accounting firms in Melbourne, and did that. And they basically said, when you finish university, if you finish university, we'll guarantee you a job. So that was a pretty great opportunity to say, right, year 3, final year, you can just enjoy yourself, which I did. Probably a bit too much, and knowing there was a job at the end of that, and that was a pretty good starting point for life.
But you would have worked your butt off in your first years there.
Oh, I made a lot of coffees and did a lot of photocopying and all that sort of thing. But it was a good experience. I started off in audit, which was probably in hindsight horrifically boring, but did learn a hell of a lot working for a big organisation. Got to know some great people. and just learning that kind of the routine and the discipline that goes with looking at certain things in a structured way.
That's an interesting comment, and we'll talk about selling businesses later. But when I had my business in Footscray years ago, and I sold it, I went and worked for a multinational under contract as a result of that.
Yep.
The big wake-up call was that in my business, which was 30 staff, that sort of thing, but didn't have the disciplines, didn't have the compliance, didn't have the governance, and that was a real wake-up call. In that, another reason why I say to family businesses, if your kids are going to come into the business, get out and go and work somewhere else, work for the big companies and learn some of the things that you need to have in family businesses.
Yep. We should apply that to politicians too, shouldn't we?
Well, I have put that to a few politicians. Right?
So where to from KPMG?
So KPMG, I was there for about 4 years and became a qualified chartered accountant at the end of that. So again, another good opportunity that came from working there and all the training that came with it. And my wife was studying nursing, so she became a qualified nurse, and we both looked at each other and said, we need to get out and travel the world. So we spent about 3.5 years travelling. We went to, we bought a ticket to London, as you do, as many people do and did. Landed in London, spent some night on couches with people from Geelong and going out and having beers and whatnot, and woke up after a few days and went, do we really want to stay in London? Is this what's for us? And I looked at her and said, we can hang out with people from Geelong in Geelong.
Yeah, that's
We're
right.
in London. Apologies. Yeah. Why don't we go somewhere else? Where do you want to go? Well, we've both got Scottish heritage. Let's go to Scotland. So we hired a car and drove to Edinburgh and spent nearly 3 years in Edinburgh. So being an accountant, I got a job working for one of the banks. She got a job as a nurse, agency nurse. And worked there for a few years and worked 6 months on and took a month off and travelled Europe, Scotland, you name it.
As you do.
Well, you could go back there soon because the Victorian government's paying for the Commonwealth Games at the moment.
Yeah.
So there's a good reason to go back
It
to
would be good fun,
to Scotland.
absolutely.
Yes.
It's a good part of the world. Yeah.
So what then tipped you back here?
Well, there was probably an interim step which I didn't fill you in on, and that was my wife was probably keen to come home, and there's some things happening in the family drawing her home, and I probably wasn't ready, knowing that if you come home you've got a mortgage and a house and a family and whatnot to deal with. So I strung out our, we'll call it a honeymoon, for another 12 months. We lived in Vancouver for about 9 months in Canada.
Nice city.
Similar thing, just working and.
Yep.
And then we travelled through South America for about 3 months on the way home. Good. So that was the interim step. Came back to, we ended up back in Melbourne renting at a friend's house and said, where to from here? And I landed another job. I had in the back of my mind an interest in stock market analyst, equity analyst, that kind of thing, sort of valuing and understanding insights of companies. Didn't get that, but landed at PwC, another accounting firm, in their corporate valuations team, dealing with ASX 200 companies, buying and selling and reshaping and whatnot, and kind of fell into that and just really enjoyed it, talking to people about value and accounting metrics and all sorts of things, and not having to use a green pen and a red pen anymore. And it was just really, really interesting.
We've heard that line a few times with folk that have gone into
the
accounting.
green
the green pens and the red pens of audit.
etc. All of that.
That was one thing I did learn when I went and worked for a multinational, was that this thing, but before the auditors came around, we were all given instructions before the green pens came around.
Yep.
Right?
We weren't liked, the auditors, typically, and I think that's probably not changed.
And it's fascinating, isn't it? Because as you proceed through life in different roles, in some of the board roles I've had, I've always been keen to make sure that we bring auditors in to look at some specific things like payroll.
Yep.
So you don't get caught.
Yeah.
And
exactly.
what's our risk plans like? And it's not an evil thing; it's a good thing. But I must admit, in my earlier career, here come the auditors. Right? How do you? Anyway, we digress. So moving into business valuation.
Yep.
So you with Pricewaterhouse for a few years.
Yeah, I was there for 6 years.
Yep.
And then probably on a personal front, bought a house. Well, we had a child actually, and thought, where are we going to live? And as you do, you look at the mortgages and you think, God, these are horrific. So we started toying with which suburbs we were going to live in Melbourne. And then I think jokingly after a glass of wine said, what about Geelong? And after swearing never to come back and live here ever again,
you're back.
I think within 3 weeks we bought a house and moved to Geelong. So, you know, back where we started, and that was about 2010, bought a house and then commuted for a while. And that kind of caused a bit of a change in, do I really want to be commuting and working for a big firm, or do I want to start working with not only a smaller firm but something local that also gives you direct contact to a business owner? So what I found with the bigger firms and the bigger jobs were you're dealing with a CEO, CFO of a multinational company like Telstra. CFO's got lots of things going on, not particularly interested in your valuation insights, rightly or wrongly. But you talk to a private business owner, they want to know, why are we doing this? Why are your fees this much? What are we talking about? How long is it going to take? And they really want to understand everything. So, but equally, the flip side of that is you get a chance to ask them open questions.
Yep.
So, yes, here's what the numbers say, that's fine, but tell me about your business. Tell me about what makes it tick, and let's pretend I want to buy it from you. Sell it to me. What do you do? What do you do well? Where are the weaknesses? And that was what I found really interesting.
Well, that's good, because one of the reasons I wanted to talk to you today was about valuations for privately owned companies.
Yep.
And both Mark and I have been involved, and you in the past, Mark, with a family business takeover, and I'm coming up against it all the time. And there's the good, the bad and the ugly, and the good is rare, unfortunately. And what I mean by that is that once a situation causes a family to make a decision to sell, they're not ready. And then it just starts from there. And it was interesting in your comment before about you can talk to them about various things, and they don't like paying the fees, right? I've learnt that a long time ago.
Yep.
However, the idea of having a proper valuation and going through all that process and becoming what I call investment ready is it adds to the value of the business.
Yep, agreed.
But it also at the same time helps sort out all the issues around the family emotions.
Yep.
And that's important.
Yeah, on the fee front, that's an interesting one. There's a guy in America called Chris Mercer who's a valuations doyen, I suppose, in the industry. And his view with those conversations around fees was, forget about the value, but talk about kind of succession as a concept. He said, well, if you're going to see your financial planner, your wealth manager, you'll spend, 1% or thereabouts on getting investment advice. So why not spend 1% on getting your business ready? Whatever that looks like, whether it's a handover to family or a sale or whatever. So if your business is worth $1 million, for argument's sake, can you set aside 10 grand, 1%, to invest in your business to make it better or business ready, sale ready? And so I like that idea, and I kind of use that sometimes with clients to say, well, if the fee's X, one, yes, okay, it looks like a pain in the backside, you've got to pay this fee, but one, you're getting educated about business value. Two, we might find some things that you might want to work on. And three, you might be one step closer to whatever it is you're trying to do.
It's funny the debate on fees on service, using the word service industries, because it's seen as sort of intangible, isn't it? Because it's your intellectual skill that you're bringing, and it's not a little box you open in the cupboard and say, here you go, this is what I'm bringing you. You've got to sell yourself. And people struggle with that as a value. If they could walk in and pick up a glass and say, how much is that? Oh, that looks about $20, that's $20. But if you turn up and say, oh, my fee's going to be $10,000, they immediately think it's too much.
But my favourite saying, as you know, is Stephen Covey, begin with the end in mind. So I always sell the end. And then there's a couple other red flags. When they ask you how much an hour do you charge, you think, oh, I'm not sure this is the right place to be. And all the rest of it. But my benchmark, Lachie, is how much do you pay your lawyers? Right? And then you remind them how much they pay the lawyers, and the argument goes away. But you've got to sell the end end first, because by bringing in somebody that really knows what they're doing, that end will be much bigger and wealthier at the end of it.
And I think as you get a bit older and get a few more greys, you start appreciating that, you've invested some time in education and you're worth X, and someone will do it cheaper, no doubt, but go for your life. I've got enough to do. So if you want to go over there, that's fine.
That's fine. So what made you start your own business? Was that to stay in Geelong or?
A bit of everything, really. So probably a combination of wanting to challenge myself, a combination of the kids were at primary school and I wanted that flexibility of not working for someone else and then being accountable for, I've got to go at 2:00. So, you kind of cower and walk out the door. So having the flexibility to be involved in their life and go on school camps and be their cricket coach and all those things, which I've done. My wife said to me, stop bloody talking about it and go and do it. So there's sort of number 3, if you like. So it was a bit of a challenge. It's a bigger thing in America. So the American valuation industry is primarily made up of practices that are not part of something else. That's all they do.
Yeah.
So I thought, why not?
And
still going 7 odd years later.
Yeah. And when you started, did you have a couple of clients as you started, or did you have to go off and?
I think I had one.
Yeah.
But you're scrounging, as you do with any new business, you're scrounging, you're marketing, you're hoping the phone rings, all those sort of things. And a month or 2 in, it started happening, and I'm like, okay, we'll be able to pay the bills. It's good.
And how did you grow? Was it referrals, word of mouth?
I've tried a bit of everything. So probably early on. Taking a step back, when I was at the other firm, the other accounting firm in Geelong, which was WHK now, Findex, I think.
It's had 6 names since then.
Yeah, very, very names, but very good organisation. They had about 100 offices around Australia, so I made a bit of an effort whilst I was there to go and meet people in different offices. So I'll drive to Warragul, I'll drive to Colac, I'll drive to Bairnsdale, and just walk in and to go, here I am, this is what I do a bit of a show and tell, whatever. With the view to saying, if you can convince one person in each office who then convinces their clients that this is a good idea, that's good enough for me. That's good. So that led to a kind of a notion of referrals and building relationships with people. So I tried the pounding the pavement. I tried to go all the marketing and networking events and paid advertising, and realised that they're okay, but you're actually better off just knowing people. Making the connections.
And Lachie, that's an interesting comment, because I actually posted something last night, Mark, about we're about to hit our 150th Friday podcast.
Yep.
Wow.
And people always ask, and you read, stories about podcasts, and they've got thousands of followers. But my comment is that, what we've gained is 150 new contacts. And they're more than contacts. They're actually, we could go to any one of those contacts, and if they're a real estate agent, or if they're whatever they are, restaurant, no matter, or hospitality, Mark and I can pick up the phone, ring them, and they'll tell us whatever we want to know.
That's brilliant.
And that is
it's connections.
That's a direct result of why we do the podcast. There's no money involved. In fact, it's a lot of effort and time.
A lot of effort and time.
That's right. Sorry. Yeah.
So I know you've been court appointed to some value. How did you get into that side of things then?
Well, I probably reluctantly got into that. So a few lawyers would call and he'd say yes, and then one thing would lead to another. And so I think when I first started, I said no to family law, to divorce valuations, because they're, emotionally intense and you're not really necessarily benefiting anyone, but there is a huge demand for the work. So I said yes to a couple of lawyers that I trusted, and no to a couple of others that I wasn't sure about, and a few others I priced myself out of it, thinking they probably won't say yes. But as you do them more and you get a bit more confidence in them, and you go to court and you're asked questions by barristers, you start feeling a bit more confident that really all you're doing is the same thing, just in a different environment. So it's not your habitat, but you can get used to it.
So when you do a court-appointed valuation, you have to go to court and present it?
Not often.
Not often?
No.
But occasionally you get dragged up?
Yeah. Occasionally you get dragged up. Yep.
And they're trying to find flaws in your valuation? Is that the
combination of flaws in your personality, experience, and the work you've done? So anything and everything.
Yes, because it's the gloves are off.
Correct.
And you've got to be seen to be 100% neutral.
Yeah, and
That's
and
an important part.
Going back to having a standalone firm, standalone business, that was a big thing to say, I'm not conflicted by anyone else I work for, by relationships, by anything. It's just, this is it.
That's very cool.
Well, Lachie, I'm a business owner.
Yep.
Pretend.
Yeah.
And I've got a successful business, and I've got various family members.
Sure.
And the family, through various reasons, have decided need to put the business up for sale.
Mm-hmm.
So you're recommended, and we come and sit down with you.
Yep.
How do you explain to that person or that group of people who are looking to sell in a highly emotional state their business? What process do you use?
This to engage or to actually go through the valuation?
Let's assume that they're engaged and you're going to do a valuation.
Yep.
What's the process?
So there's obviously a number of steps involved, but that probably won't bore you with that. I think it's more, to me, getting some acceptance from them. So not just getting one person in a room and say, we'll talk to you about the business. You need to have multiple points of contact. And the way I explain it to them is, all we're trying to do is learn about your business. So, and there's two parts to that. One is learn about the numbers. So how are you performing financially? Where have you come from? Where are you going to? That's a bit more kind of obvious, and it is what it is usually. And the other is the qualitative. So tell me about how your business ticks. And that's when you often get the engagement, particularly from whether it's the matriarch or the patriarch, who it's their baby, if you like, in a family context. You start getting them really buying into it. They're like, oh, so you just want me to tell you about my business? Yep. Tell me about how you started.
Mm-hmm.
Where do your clients come from? Why do they come back? What are you doing differently to that person, the competitor over there? And that often is the way to engage them. And once, in my experience, once the family starts seeing the patriarch engage, often the siblings and others will start to come into it. Or the patriarch says, go and bloody talk to him.
That's right. And the other issue I often come across is that, and I had one recently, family come to a decision to sell the business.
Yep.
But they're not investment ready. They're not ready. How do you go about that? Because then you've got to say to them, well, I can't really value it right now because it's not ready to be sold. Or what do you do to get them to that point?
I think it becomes self-evident. So if they're so determined to sell their business and they believe the first step is to value it, we'll say, we can value it for you. And typically what's going to happen is you'll get a value that's well below what they want or what they expect. So then the questions start coming up, well, why is it this number, not that number? And that becomes that, well, actually, you're not sale ready. So, for example, your financials are a horrible mess. You've got a whole lot of cash going through the business which is not recorded. That's great while you're a family business and you're trying to hide from the tax man. But now you're trying to sell it. So we actually need to capture all of that information. You don't have a strategy. You don't have a business plan. So you can then use that as a bit of a motivator to say, let's work to improving the value of the business, or let's get a bill involved to help you, right the ship, if you like.
Yeah. Actually, it's funny that I remember years ago now, my wife wanted to buy a little cafe. And so we got the books and we're looking at it going, it loses money.
Yep.
Turnover's really low. And anyway, we wandered back into the cafe without accountants and all the rest just to talk to the owner. And then she said, oh, I'll show you the real figures. And she pulled out this other set.
Yeah.
And this was the black book where all the cash stuff was included.
Yeah.
And it was a really good business. But you see, we can't operate that way. I'm straight and narrow. There's the rules and you follow them, not be sneaky. But it was amazing.
It still happens a little bit. I've seen it a couple of times in the car wash industry where there's a view of like, Lachie's told me it's worth X, but really, what do we think it's worth? And let's work out a deal off to the side. So back to your kind of question, that the valuation in my mind is not the panacea. It doesn't solve the problem or answer the question. It's my opinion. And it helps start a conversation.
Yeah.
Lachie, I'm a great believer in that when you start a business or a partnership or family, all the rest of it, the first thing you should do is write the divorce papers. Right? And divorce papers, I'm talking about not the marriage. I'm talking about the shareholders agreement.
Yep. Very important.
Yep.
What's your point of view on that?
Agreed. And one of the first lawyers I met in the work that I do, he said to me, people squabble about fees and whatnot, but I tell them I can charge you $10,000 now to write your shareholders agreement, your leases, whatever, get all of that stuff in place, or I'll see you in 5 years and I'll charge you $100.
Yeah.
So it's, in my mind, I tell every client that, well, actually, when we're collecting information, we ask for those documents. Where's your shareholders agreement? Show me your company constitution, lease agreements, employment contracts, as you would if you were buying and looking, thoroughly. So I'd always recommend getting a shareholders agreement. And what I've started to saying to some people when they're getting their lawyers to draft them, can I have a look at the bit that relates to transactions? Because rightly or wrongly, lawyers write it in a certain way, but often the language they use can actually hurt these people later on. So there's some language to do with transactions. It's really, really critical. So
I'm looking at, of all the family businesses I've been involved with, probably only 2 have ever had the foresight or the right advice at the right time. And when it's come time to sell, for whatever reason, it's well documented.
Yep.
And it's clear.
Yep.
And it works. Might not be the way they really want it to work, but because of that agreement, it works.
Yep. So it's the transparency.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So, Lachie, people listening to this, if they're thinking, might reach out to Lachie and talk to him about selling my business or valuing my business, what are the 3 things they should be thinking about before they ring you? What's the things that you're going to, when you walk in the door, what's the very first question you're going to ask them? Why? Okay.
So why is in, and not an antagonistic way, just, what are you interested in? Why are we doing this? Because I don't want to waste people's time or money. We're all busy, and let's not waste money if we don't have to. So sometimes it's a conversation around, well, my accountant told me or someone told me I should get the business valued, and I speak to them, I'm like, well, actually, I don't think you're ready for that. You've got a few other things to do before you get there, so let's not waste time doing that. And if you want to have a coffee and talk about it, let's do that. That's fine. So it's probably not 3 things, it's 1 in my mind. It's the fees and the structure and the process can come later, but it's more, why are we doing this and is it appropriate?
Is it the right time? And that's interesting. Oh, very interesting.
Right now we're reading and hearing about, particularly here in Victoria, about the economy. And I keep reading the stats, and I talk to Worrells here. And we've interviewed Scott Anderson, and we're reading about the large number of insolvencies and how bad business is. And I'm involved with a business that has been hit hard by the economy. Where do you see it going? How do you read the market now, or is that impossible?
Well, funny, when you talk about insolvencies and the Worrells, I've talked to Scott and I've looked at all the numbers, and part of what we do is to look at numbers, both macro and micro. And I had a view probably 2 years ago that the rate of insolvencies post-COVID, or a year or 2 out of COVID, were horrifically high, record levels. We've got a high interest rate environment. We've got volatile stock markets. We've got all these sort of things, political nonsense. So I actually thought the economy was going to hit a recession. That sounds quite negative and cynical, but I was wrong. So I'm hoping I'm still wrong, that the stats don't look good, but then you look at the stock market, which is disconnected, it's at all-time highs. You look at the housing market, which are at all-time highs. Don't know. It's probably the short answer.
One of the interesting things that I watch is, and we've been, we always go to these economic updates from Westbank and all the rest of it. And the Commonwealth Bank one I went to, they put up a slide showing the savings, people's personal savings, because it automatically generates out of the credit card spending.
Yep.
And just after COVID, of course, there's huge cash savings. And now, if they put up the same information, people have spent all those savings, and their credit cards are maxed out.
Yep.
And that's a a really interesting indicator. And I'm involved with a business that's revenue's down, the number of transactions is up. So, and when you analyse the numbers, you say, well, okay, you've been affected by that market segment that you used to do well in, but that's now not buying from you. You know, you've got to look at the numbers and just make some sense out of it.
And I think there's a straightforward answer to your question of where are things going, because, you know, post-COVID, I was starting to look for those signs of, well, is there weakness in the economy, and therefore is the value of all businesses deteriorating? But having said that, I worked with a lot of clients from the last 3 years that are making a huge amount of money, if not significantly more than the COVID days. So there are real pockets where people are doing exceptionally well because they've got a good business regardless of what's going on in the economy. But then the flip side is you've got, you know, nearly 3,000 businesses for sale at any point in Australia. Small businesses, that is. How many of them sell? No idea, probably 10, 20%.
Well, a lot give up and just close up, don't they?
Well, there's an element of that. Yeah. So that's the negative on kind of the one hand. But the positive is some of the businesses I see are absolutely brilliant. They may or may not ever sell, but they're making a lot of money for the family through the period. So
it might be a structural change rather than selling it.
Correct.
Well, Mark, without giving anything away, we're just judging the Business Awards, say 60 entries. And you read through that, and there's some great businesses.
Oh, fantastic
a lot of them
businesses.
are doing really well.
Yep.
And lots of micro businesses, people having a go, but doing okay.
Yep.
So, no, it's good. So, Lachie, how do folk find you? Google SME Valuations?
SME Valuations, yep.
You're
absolutely.
On LinkedIn?
Yep, on LinkedIn,
and
on the web, all that sort of stuff.
Cool.
Not on any social media apart from LinkedIn.
That's all right. And you touched on that you're happy to have a cup of coffee first before you get too involved. So
pick up the phone.
Pick up the phone.
Thing. Yeah.
Fantastic. So, Lachie, thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Lachie. That was really
interesting.
Good, valuable information to people out there.
I appreciate it.
Because a lot of things they just never think of.
True. So, thank you, Lachie.
Thank you both.
Thank you.